Hello, and welcome to Smarter by Midnight. This is your quiet space at the end of the day, a place where the world outside can finally fade and your thoughts can soften into something gentler. No rush, no ticking clock, just a voice, a story, and the hush of night. Tonight, we're drifting into one of the strangest questions you can ever ask about reality. A question that belongs to the curious, the restless, and maybe even to the dreamers who find themselves awake when the rest of the world sleeps. It isn't about tomorrow. It isn't about yesterday. It's about what would unfold if the very rhythm of time itself simply stopped, not forever. Not for a century, not even for an hour, but just 60 seconds. A single minute taken cleanly out of the river of reality. A gap, a void, a moment that does not belong anywhere in the story of the world. And yet, or would you know it had happened? Could you even be aware of a minute in which awareness itself has been paused? Would you stand at the edge of stillness, a silent witness to silence itself? These are the thoughts we'll walk through together tonight. Questions without firm answers. Images that glow in the imagination but slip through the hands when you try to hold them too tightly. So let yourself rest into the question. Let your breathing settle into its own rhythm. Let the day behind you loosen its grip. Because what we are exploring now is not a puzzle to be solved, but a mystery to drift inside. A pause without end. A second without measure. One fleeting minute gone without a fight. A single moment stolen from the endless river of night. Would you notice the pause? Would you feel your lungs caught mid-breath? A single inhalation frozen in the chest? Or would you freeze as well, locked into stillness with the rest of creation, never aware of what had been stolen? If the world stopped, would the light that streams through your window be caught in place, like dust hanging in a sunbeam that refuses to fall? Would every ripple on the surface of water, every leaf mid-fall, every bird mid-flight become a sculpture, carved out of nothing but silence? And what of sound? The laughter of a child, the crash of a wave, the rhythm of your own heartbeat, would they be frozen too, suspended in the air, waiting to resume once time allowed them to? Perhaps the strangest question of all, what if you were the only one, not frozen? What if you walked among a world that had been stopped, a traveler in a museum of still life? Would it feel like a gift, the power to move freely through a silent eternity? Or would it feel like a curse, to carry the unbearable loneliness of being awake when everything else is asleep? Think of a raindrop, held in place just before it shatters against the ground. Think of a candle's flame, forever leaning but never flickering. Think of your own eyes, caught in the instant of a blink that never completes. A minute without motion. A pause in the stream. A world caught forever in the fold of a dream. Before we wander deeper, I'd like to pause, not to stop time, but to say something simple. My hope is that this video brings you two things: a sense of calm, to rest your mind as you drift toward sleep, then a sense of wonder to carry with you into tomorrow. If you find comfort here, if this gentle question settles something in you or stirs a curiosity you didn't know you had, you can subscribe or share it with someone who might also find peace in these late-night explorations. It helps others discover this little corner of quiet, and it keeps these midnight journeys alive. But whether you choose to or not, this time remains yours. These minutes belong to you and no one else. A small gift for the mind at rest, a lantern glowing in the night, a gentle silence we create together before the dawn returns with light. As we wander into this question, we'll follow three winding paths. They are not separate roads, but braided strands of the same mystery, woven together, circling back, meeting again. The first is science, the language of numbers, forces, and the laws that hold the world in motion. Science asks, what happens to a photon if time does not move forward? What happens to your heartbeat if the rhythm of seconds falters? What happens to gravity, to the expansion of the cosmos, if time itself forgets to flow? The second is philosophy, the voice of reflection. Philosophy wonders, is time a real thing, flowing like a river, whether or not we see it? Or is it only the echo of change, a shadow cast by motion, a measure our minds create to explain why one moment is not the same as the next? If the river of time stopped, would the riverbed remain, or would everything, ourselves included, vanish into stillness? And the third is imagination, that dreamlike space where science and philosophy cannot go. Here we find myths and stories, gods freezing battlefields mid-stride, enchanted kingdoms locked in sleep, a single embrace stretched into eternity. These tales are not answers, but they are ways of feeling the question, of wrapping it in images that linger in the heart. Together, these three threads form one path: science, philosophy, imagination too. Different doors, yet each opens to you. The mystery that deepens the longer its steps told. A minute of silence, more precious than gold. So now, let us drift deeper. If time were to stop, even for 60 seconds, we need to understand what it is that's being interrupted. Because time is not only what our clocks measure or what the calendar marks, it is the pulse behind every movement, the rhythm behind every song, the unseen metronome that guides both the universe and your heartbeat. But how fragile is that machinery? How delicate is the ticking we take for granted? Tonight we'll walk through the gears and cogs of time as we know it. Clocks of metal, clocks of flesh, clocks of stars, before we dare to press the pause. You carry clocks inside you, whether or not you ever glance at your wristwatch. Your heart is one. With each beat, it ticks, sending a pulse of life through your body, a steady rhythm that began long before you were born and has never once stopped until this moment. Your breath is another. Inhale, exhale, each cycle a measure of time, counted in silence even when you forget. And then there is the circadian rhythm, the great hidden clock that governs your sleep, your wakefulness, your hunger, and your mood. It listens to the sun, to darkness, to meals, to habit. Even if you shut yourself away in a cave, it will keep ticking, though it may drift. All of these rhythms, heartbeat, breath, sleep, hunger, are pieces of time's machinery. They are fragile, and yet they endure. But what if time stopped? Would your heart freeze mid-beat? Would your lungs hold air without release? Would your circadian rhythm be suspended as though night and day had never existed? In those 60 seconds, the clocks inside you would wait like statues. And when time began again, would you notice that a minute had vanished, or would your body simply continue, unaware that its most intimate rhythms had been briefly erased? One pulse, one breath, one moment gone, a tick without a talk, a bell that was never rung. Now picture the clocks we've built with our hands. There are pendulums swinging in grandfather clocks, gears grinding in pocket watches, digital numbers glowing on phones at night. They are all our attempt to tame time, to capture it, to measure it, so we can plan, so we can remember, so we can know. But the truth is, clocks don't measure time itself. They measure change, the swing of a pendulum, the vibration of a quartz crystal, the decay of an atom. Each one is simply a change in the world, regular enough that we trust it to stand for something invisible. What happens to these devices if time halts? The pendulum would freeze mid-swing. The quartz crystal would hang mid-vibration. The digital display would flicker into stillness, its light frozen like a painting. And yet, when time resumes, would the clocks pick up exactly where they left off, as though nothing had happened, or would they stutter, glitch, fail to reconcile the lost moment? A second missing from every clock on Earth, a silent void in history, one gear without a grind, and one number left behind. Beyond flesh, beyond gears, there is a greater clock, the sky. The Earth spins on its axis, creating day and night. The moon pulls the tides. The planets trace their orbits. Stars are born, live, and burn away. Galaxies drift apart, expanding the fabric of the universe itself. This is time on its grandest stage, the cosmic machinery. Astronomers call it motion, but to us, it is rhythm. The Earth rotates once every 24 hours, ticks a year every time it circles the sun, counts centuries in precession, eons in stellar evolution. If time stopped for a minute, would Earth itself hang in its path, unmoving in the void? Would the tides pause mid-rise, the planets halt in their orbits, the galaxies hold their drifting? And if so, when the universe resumed, would it be seamless, or would the stars themselves shudder as though they had been startled awake? What does it mean for a galaxy to miss a minute? What does it mean for eternity to hiccup? On that scale, a minute is less than a blink, less than the flutter of a butterfly's wing. And yet, even the smallest pause echoes through the largest systems. A planet that misses one step, a tide that never crests, a star that skips a beat in its burning chest. And then there are the laws, the invisible framework beneath all these clocks. Physics tells us that time is woven together with space, like threads in a single cloth. Space-time, they call it. To move through space is to move through time. To bend one is to bend the other. Einstein's relativity suggests that time does not flow the same everywhere. It stretches and compresses depending on speed and gravity. For an astronaut near a black hole, minutes slip differently than for someone resting on Earth. But relativity assumes time is always moving, always flowing. What if the flow stopped? Would light, which always races forward at its unbreakable speed, suddenly halt mid-flight? Would photons be frozen between stars, never reaching their destination until time resumes? Would entropy, the arrow of time, the tendency for order to unravel into disorder, suddenly hold its breath? Would the universe stop unraveling just for one impossible instant? And most of all, would we as conscious beings be able to notice the pause, or is noticing itself dependent on time moving forward? It is a paradox wrapped in silence, a question that circles without landing. If time paused, perhaps nothing would change, or perhaps everything would. And maybe that is the point. Without time, change itself cannot exist. A flame that does not burn, a river that does not flow, a truth that only silence can know. So here we are, staring at the machinery of time, The body's pulse, the clockmaker's gear, the galaxy's climb, all fragile, all steady, all bound to the same unseen tide. And yet each one would falter if time itself were denied. One heartbeat left unfinished, one pendulum stilled, one starcep's ancient rhythm abruptly unfulfilled. This is the fragility we carry in every breath and motion, and it is here in the machinery sep's hush that we begin to sense the ocean, that time is not ours, not truly our own, but the current we drift in from the day we are born. And if that current froze, even for one quiet minute, we would feel the stillness not around us, but within it. We've explored the machinery of time, the pulse in your chest, the gears of your clocks, the motion of the stars. But now it's time to press pause. Not for the full minute, not yet, just the very first second, because the first instant of stillness is where the strangeness begins. It is the moment when everything should continue, but doesn't. The moment when you reach for a sound and hear none, when you expect a flicker of light and see nothing arrive, when your body prepares to move but remains locked in place. This is the second that does not pass, a second that belongs nowhere, a second that becomes eternity, hidden in the gap between one tick and the next. To understand it, let's slip inside the pause. Let's look at the first second, when the river of time falls still, and the world waits without moving. Think of light, that restless traveler. Photons leave the sun every moment, racing through the vacuum of space. In just over 8 minutes, they arrive here on Earth, warming your skin, dazzling your eyes, glinting off oceans and rivers and glass. Some photons bounce from the walls around you. Some scatter through the air, striking dust and making the air visible. Some flicker from the screen before you, carrying shapes and words. And in the first second of the stop, they all halt. A beam of sunlight is caught midway. Halfway from wall to eye, it simply lingers, refusing to continue. The room appears lit, but not truly, for light is no longer traveling. Would you see anything at all? Perhaps not, because your eyes require photons arriving, constantly refreshing the picture of the world. If they stop, the picture fades. Within milliseconds, sight vanishes into blindness. Imagine the strangeness of that blindness. Not darkness, but emptiness. Not a room gone black, but a room erased. And if somehow consciousness continued, you might feel yourself floating in a world that looks like a painting left unfinished. Rays of light, frozen mid-flight, hanging like golden dust. A rainbow paused across a drop of rain, forever bending but never shining. If a candle burned, its flame would still rise, but only in form, no flicker, no glow, a sculpture of fire made from nothing at all. Would that be beautiful or terrifying? A gallery of light without warmth, a universe visible but unreachable, a world bright but blind, a day without dawn, a canvas of light that never truly shone. Now listen, sound is vibration, molecules of air pushing one another until they reach your ear. Every song, every voice, every rush of wind is simply motion, transferred and carried. If time halts, motion halts. Air molecules no longer move. Vibrations no longer ripple. A song playing on the radio freezes mid-note. The guitar's string still trembles in shape, but no sound emerges. A singer's voice lingers in their throat, but never travels outward. Imagine a friend laughing mid-breath. You see the curve of their smile, the crinkle of their eyes, but the sound never reaches you. The laugh is trapped in their chest, sealed in silence. Waves crash against the shore, but the roar never follows. Thunder blooms in the clouds, but never rolls across the sky. A whisper forms on lips, but never becomes a word. And your own voice, if you tried to speak, would never leave your body. Your breath would prepare, your lips would shape the syllables, but the air itself would not carry them. Your words would die unborn. The silence of this first second is not ordinary silence. It is not like the quiet of night or the hush of a forest. Those silences are full of tiny sounds, the chirp of insects, the rustle of leaves, the hum of the earth. This silence is perfect, absolute. It swallows memory itself, because even the thought of sound depends on rhythm. A silence so deep it becomes weight. A silence so pure it feels like infinity. No wind, no echo, no song. A second of silence that stretches too long. Now step inward, into your own body. Your lungs are mid-breath, perhaps halfway through an inhalation, your ribs expanding, the air sliding down your throat, and then stillness. Your chest freezes, your diaphragm holds. The air never finishes its journey. Your blood is mid-flow. Red cells rush toward your muscles, carrying oxygen. White cells patrol, hunting invaders. Platelets hurry to patch wounds, and then halt, every cell suspended in the river, a current stopped in place. Your heart is mid-beat. One chamber contracts, blood surges forward, but the next chamber never receives it. It is like a drum hit once, but never allowed to echo. Even your brain is caught in the pause. Neurons fire across synapses, sparks of electricity leaping gaps. Thoughts begin, but do not finish. A memory almost forms, but never completes. A sensation arises, but never resolves. You are a half-written word, a song cut off before the chorus. And yet, if your awareness somehow continued, what would you feel? Would you notice the incompleteness of your breath, the pressure of blood mid-pulse, the thought that almost was? Or would your awareness float free of your frozen body, watching the pause from outside? One breath unfinished, one beat undone, one thought suspended, never to run. Now turn outward again, into the world beyond your skin. A bird is caught mid-flight, wings stretched wide but motionless. A dog leaps for a ball, paws lifted but never landing. A waterfall hangs in the air, droplets like jewels suspended in invisible glass. A child runs down a street, one foot lifted, one arm swinging, frozen in that half movement, neither falling nor flying. A woman turns her head to smile, lips curved but locked, her hair mid-sway in a breeze that no longer moves. A man gestures mid-sentence, his hand raised, his eyes alive, but no words, no motion, no completion. Everywhere you look, life is preserved, but lifeless. A gallery of statues, carved not from stone, but from time itself. If you alone moved, you would wander among them. You could step between raindrops, walk through a marketplace where every merchant and buyer is locked in mid-trade, see joy and sorrow held in impossible suspension. Would it feel like peace, like the world finally gave you silence to rest in? Or would it feel unbearable, The loneliness of being the only soul awake in a dreamless sleep. To move in a frozen world is to be set apart, to be alive in a place where nothing else breathes. Would you treasure the stillness, or would you beg for the chaos of motion to return? And here is the paradox that deepens it all. For you to even notice this first second of stillness, something within you must move. Awareness itself must flow, but thought requires time. Every neuron in your brain fires in milliseconds. Every memory requires seconds to stitch itself together. Every recognition, every word, every awareness is built from time. If time stops, how can thought continue? If time is frozen, how can memory exist? Perhaps the answer is simple. You would not know. You would be frozen with everything else, lost in stillness. The second would pass without witness, without knowledge. But perhaps not everything requires time. Perhaps awareness, whatever it is, can exist outside of seconds. Perhaps consciousness is not bound entirely by clocks and neurons. If that were true, then in this first second, you might hover outside of the universe. You might see the pause, not from within, but from beyond, a traveler who watches a play while the actors remain still. And if awareness can stand apart from time, then what does that say about us? Are we only flesh and neurons, bound to rhythms and seconds? Or are we something more, something that can step beyond the river, even if only for an instant? This question circles itself endlessly, like a wheel with no end. For to answer it, you would need time. And in this pause, time is gone. A second without thought, a thought without time, a question without reason, no answer, no rhyme. So this is the first second of the stop, light suspended mid-air, sound sealed in silence, breath and blood unmoving. The world itself paused, a gallery of motionless life. It is not just a second, it is eternity folded into an instant, a single heartbeat stretched into infinity. And in that eternity, we ask questions that may never be answered. Could we notice it? Could we survive it? Could we move within it? Or would we, like everything else, be locked in place, unaware that 60 seconds had been stolen? Stillness upon stillness, silence upon silence. A world turned into a painting no eye can see. The first second is already infinite, already unbearable in its beauty, already haunting in its silence. And yet, it is only the beginning, for there are 59 more seconds to explore, each with their own mysteries. The first second is the doorway. The next is the dream. We have paused the universe. Light is frozen. Sound is silent. Breath and blood are still. The world around you has become a gallery of statues. But let's step into something stranger, your own perception. Because even if everything outside you has paused, what happens inside your mind? If the machinery of the body is halted, what of the self? What of the story you carry? What of the way you see and feel and know the world? Perception is time. Memory is time. Even imagination depends on the river flowing forward. So in this section, we slip not into stars or photons, but into your own awareness, into the fragile theater of the mind that always insists on moving, even when everything else is still. Let's begin with the 5 doors through which you know the world: sight, hearing, touch, taste. Sight requires light, constantly refreshing your vision without photons reaching your retina. The picture fades almost instantly. The frozen world would quickly vanish from your awareness, leaving only memory of what had been. Hearing is motion air molecules vibrating. Without them, silence reigns. Not the silence of a library, but silence so complete that your ears ring with the absence. Touch is pressure, vibration, heat. But if molecules do not move, then the warmth of the air, the texture of cloth, the feel of your own skin, all vanish. You touch, but sensation never reaches you. Taste and smell are chemistry in motion, molecules meeting receptors. If time is stopped, the molecules hang in air or on the tongue, never completing the journey. One by one, your senses slip away. What remains is not nothingness, but a peculiar kind of blindness, deafness, numbness, and awareness of absence itself. What would that feel like? Perhaps disorienting, even terrifying, or perhaps peaceful. A release from the constant flood of sensation. The senses freeze, and you are left with only thought. The outer world gone, leaving only the inner. A sight that never arrives, a sound that never speaks, a touch that never finishes, a silence that repeats. Your brain is a storm of sparks. Neurons fire across synapses, billions at once, each one carrying a fragment of thought, sensation, or memory. But every spark takes time, milliseconds. If time stops, the sparks cannot leap. A thought begins, but never completes. A memory rises, but never forms. An emotion surges, but never arrives. Imagine recalling a loved one's face. The image starts to appear, but freezes before it becomes whole. Imagine trying to speak to yourself, an inner voice whispering, but caught on the first syllable. Your consciousness would be like a movie, paused mid-frame, characters half formed, dialogue half said, scenes never unfolding. And yet, perhaps some part of the mind is not bound entirely by physics. Dreams bend time in strange ways. A dream that lasts seconds can feel like hours. Could the same be true in this frozen second? Could the brain invent its own time, even while the universe holds still? Could thought become dream, weaving its own fabric? If so, you might experience not a second of silence, but a lifetime of images born entirely within. One spark unfinished, one memory undone, one mind suspended beneath a motionless sun. Picture this. The world has frozen, but you remain aware. You blink, but your eyelids do not move. You try to breathe, but your lungs hold. You try to speak, but no sound comes. And yet, within your mind, something stirs. At first, it feels like a dream. Images drifting, unanchored by the senses. A street you once walked, a voice you once heard, the smell of rain, the taste of bread, the warmth of a hand in yours. Are these memories or new creations? You cannot tell. Without time, the line between memory and imagination dissolves. Perhaps you walk down a hallway that never ends. Perhaps you see loved ones frozen, but your mind lets them turn toward you, smile, speak. Perhaps the pause becomes a canvas on which your mind paints endlessly, desperate for motion. And when the pause ends, when time begins again, none of it remains. The minute has vanished, and with it, the dream. To live a lifetime in a second. To wander a world that never was. To return with nothing, not even the shadow of what you saw. Now ask, could you even notice the pause? To notice requires comparison. You must measure a before and an after. But if time itself has stopped, what is there to compare? Suppose 60 seconds vanished. Would you wake with the feeling something was missing, or would life continue seamlessly, no gap at all? It is possible that the pause would be invisible, that it would pass through reality like a ghost. No clock would record it, no memory would preserve it. But it is also possible that something subtle would remain, a strange sensation in your mind, like déjà vu, a flicker of awareness, like when you wake from a dream you cannot remember. This is the mystery of perception. To know time has stopped, you must be outside of it. But to be outside of it, you must no longer be human. Would you notice, or would the pause notice you? If the senses fail, and the brain stalls, and memory cannot move, what is left? Perhaps only the core of the self, that silent A, which persists even when thought is absent. The part of you that remains when you sit in stillness, wordless, thoughtless, but aware. Could that part endure the pause? Could it remain as witness? If so, the experience might feel like meditation taken to an extreme, a stillness beyond all stillness, awareness floating without anchor, without sensation, without thought. Some traditions might call it enlightenment. Others might call it emptiness. Scientists might say it is impossible. Just a Mendeleev. Here we are, asking, a self without senses, a self without thought, a self that lingers, though the river has stopped. So this is perception in the pause. The senses freeze. The brain seps, sparks falter. Dreams blur into memory. Awareness questions itself. It may be that you would never notice it at all, that the 60 seconds would pass like a skipped page in a book, leaving no trace. It may also be that you would dream an eternity within that second, returning with nothing but the faint shadow of déjà vu. Or it may be that a core awareness, silent, formless, still remains as witness, if only to the impossibility of itself. In truth, we cannot know, for to know requires time, and here time is gone. Stillness within stillness, silence within silence, awareness without a measure, without a frame. This is what it means to ask about perception in a world without seconds. To ask what remains when even the act of asking is impossible. And now, with perception explored, we step toward the rest of the minute. For if the first second is eternity, what are the 59 that follow? We've seen the first second, a single heartbeat stretched into infinity, but a full minute that sips is 60 times as long. 60 chances for awareness to wander, 60 stages of stillness to unfold. The minute may sound brief. In daily life, it's barely enough to tie your shoes, send a text, wait for a kettle to boil. But here, without time's motion, 1 minute is a vast continent, a frozen land we can cross slowly, second by second. So let's drift through the stillness in intervals. Let's step at 10 seconds, 20, 30, and beyond. Each pause revealing new strangeness, new echoes, new questions, because in the silence of a minute, the universe is transformed. And in that transformation, we begin to glimpse not only what the world is, but what it might be. 1 minute stretched wide, one silence made deep, a lifetime to wander in a moment's sleep. At 10 seconds, the strangeness is fresh. The stillness feels fragile, as though it might shatter at any moment. The air around you is rigid. Dust motes hover without falling. a breeze that began never finishes. You reach out toward the nearest object, a book mid-fall perhaps, and your fingers brush against it. It does not move. It is hard as stone, though it is not stone at all. It is matter caught in suspension, unwilling to respond to touch. The silence remains absolute. Your ears ache with the absence, and yet in the quiet, your mind invents sounds. You imagine echoes, whispers, fragments of melodies that never play. It is here, in the first 10 seconds, that the pause feels most unnatural, as though you have stumbled into a painting, one where the paint is still wet, but the image will never change. The silence still young, a pause not yet worn, a world half alive, but forever unborn. By 20 seconds, the stillness deepens. The strangeness shifts from shock to eerie familiarity. You begin to see details you'd never notice otherwise. A drop of water, mid-fall, refracts the world in its glassy curve. A fly's wing glitters, with colors hidden in its transparent sheet. A strand of hair sways in the air, curved but never moving. The longer you look, the more the frozen world feels like a secret museum, each object displayed with impossible precision. And then comes the thought, what of the forces that never rest? Gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear bonds, have they frozen too? Does the earth itself hang motionless in space? Mid-turn, does the moon hover above the sea, the tide caught between rise and fall? And if forces are paused, what of heat? Does fire hold still in its flame? Does ice stop melting? Steel stop rusting? Life stop decaying? At 20 seconds, the pause no longer feels like absence. It feels like a trap, a tide without motion, a fire without flame, a world without change, yet somehow the same. At 30 seconds, you are halfway through eternity. By now, you've begun to explore the emotional weight of the stillness. It is not simply curiosity anymore. It is longing. You look at faces around you, frozen mid-gesture, a child's joy caught in laughter that will never sound, an old man's grief caught mid-tear, a droplet never falling, lovers mid-embrace, arms around each other, but warmth forever unfinished. And you wonder if the pause lasted forever. Would these moments remain? Would the world become an eternal archive, a library of unfinished stories? Or would they dissolve when time resumed, erased as though they had never been? This is where philosophy deepens. Is a paused moment real, or is it only real when change carries it forward? At 30 seconds, you realize the stillness is not only physical, it is emotional. A laugh never finished, a tear never shed, a love never spoken, though the words were said. By 40 seconds, the stillness begins to feel normal. You adapt, perhaps you even explore. You walk through the frozen world, brushing past suspended leaves, stepping between raindrops. You marvel at the beauty of impossible detail. But a darker thought intrudes. What if you are not alone? What if someone else also escaped? The pause. Somewhere in the silence, another traveler moves. Would you find them, or would you miss them entirely, each wandering different paths in this frozen museum? And what if something darker moved here too? Something that exists only in the pauses, unseen when time flows. 40 seconds breeds unease. For too long, silence has reigned, and silence, stretched wide, invites shadows. A silence too heavy, a question too deep, a watcher that waits in eternity steps, sleep. At 50 seconds, the stillness feels endless. You no longer count the seconds because seconds no longer mean anything. The world has become a permanent tableau, a stage set for actors who never move. But awareness sharpens. You begin to sense the strangeness, not in objects, but in yourself. How long can a mind remain outside time? How long before memory collapses, before thought blurs, before identity itself begins to dissolve? 50 seconds into the pause, the world feels less like a frozen painting and more like a dream you may not wake from. A second without measure, a silence without end, a self that dissolves where beginnings bend. Finally, the last second arrives. The pause has stretched into forever. The frozen world has become familiar, then eerie, then overwhelming, and then release. At the 60th second, time resumes. The photon reaches your eye. The breath leaves your chest. The droplet falls. The laugh sounds. The tear drops. The embrace completes. But here's the final question. Would you know? Would you realize that 60 seconds had been missing? Perhaps everything resumes seamlessly, with no gap, no clue. Or perhaps some faint echo remains, a déjà vu, a strange heaviness, a dream remembered in shadow. The minute has ended, but the questions remain. A silence completed, a stillness undone, a minute erased beneath eternity's sun. So this is the frozen minute. At 10 seconds, wonder. At 20, unease. At 30, sorrow. At 40, questions. At 50, dissolution. At 60, release. Each stage, its own universe, its own dream. And perhaps the truth is this: the minute is not 60 seconds long, it is infinite. Each second, an eternity. Each stillness, a world. To ask what if time stopped for a minute is to ask not about clocks or calendars, but about ourselves, about perception, memory, longing, fear, hope. And maybe, just maybe, it is to glimpse eternity itself. For eternity is not forever. It is not endless days. It is simply one moment, stretched until it contains everything. 1 minute without time, one silence without sound, one question that circles but never is found. We've walked through the frozen minute in the world around us. We've seen photons held in place, breaths unfinished, faces locked in mid-motion. But the world is not just the air we breathe or the ground we walk upon. The world is also the stars, the galaxies, the vast fabric of space itself. So let's step outward, beyond Earth, into the cosmos, and ask if time were to stop, even for 1 minute, what ripples would spread across the universe. Would the stars freeze in their burning? Would galaxies halt in their drift? Would the expansion of the universe pause, leaving infinity itself caught mid-step? Or would something stranger happen, something that breaks the boundary between physics and myth? The cosmos is our great clock. So what happens when the clock forgets to tick? Begin with the planet beneath your feet. Earth spins on its axis once every 24 hours. That spin gives us day and night. It is motion so steady we rarely notice it. Yet if Earth's rotation stopped for a minute, every shadow would pause. Every sunrise would hold its place. Every tide would freeze halfway to shore. Imagine standing by the sea at the exact second the pause began. A wave arches upward, white foam curling, and then it stops, not falling, not receding. A wall of water sculpted in place. The moon, too, is caught. Its orbit halts. Its pull on the oceans hangs in suspension. For 1 minute, the tides are sculptures of themselves. Mountains still stand. Winds still. Clouds hang like brushstrokes in the air. The entire planet is a single frame, never advancing. And then ask if the Earth's spin halts. Does inertia vanish too? If time itself is paused, does momentum disappear? Or do objects continue to carry energy, trapped in a motion that cannot move? An Earth unmoving, a moon unturned, a tide that waits for a minute unearned. Beyond Earth lies the sun, our great engine, burning hydrogen into helium, releasing light that sustains life. But nuclear fusion itself requires time. Reactions that happen in fractions of a second would stop in the frozen minute. The sun is locked, mid-breath, its fire held in place, its energy trapped, and the light already leaving the sun 8 minutes away streaming toward Earth. Those photons are suspended mid-voyage, hanging in the void. For that 1 minute, no new sunlight arrives. To us, the pause might look like nothing has changed. The sky would remain bright. But in truth, the sun's heartbeat has skipped, a pause that may ripple through its burning, a lost note in its endless song. The planets too stop mid-orbit, Mercury held in its fast race, Jupiter in its long, patient swing. The solar system becomes a mobile stilled, each world a bead on a wire, unmoving. A sun that burns without fire, a planet that moves without path, a silence in orbits, a frozen math. Now step farther still, beyond the sun, beyond the edges of our solar system, to the stars. Each star is a furnace of time. Some live millions of years, others billions. They measure eras far beyond us. But even they require seconds. If time halts, the stars burn without burning, their fusion suspended, their light caught. Constellations remain, but they are constellations without life, frozen like jewels against the sky. Galaxies, too, drift apart. The universe expands. Every moment, space stretches. But if time stops, does expansion stop? Does the universe itself hold its breath? Imagine the Milky Way locked in its spin, a spiral galaxy caught mid-turn, arms of starlight unmoving, Andromeda on its slow collision course with us, suddenly still. Two galaxies frozen mid-dance. And beyond, the universe as a whole, vast, silent, paused. A galaxy unmoving, a universe undone, a silence stretched wider than the birth of the sun. Few places test time like black holes. Near their event horizons, time slows. A second for you might be hours, days, even years for someone watching from afar. They are cosmic laboratories where time bends, stretches, falters. So what happens if time itself stops everywhere? A black hole caught mid-feast, matter spiraling inward, frozen just above the horizon. To an outside observer, it already seemed paused, matter appearing never to cross, but linger forever. But in the frozen minute, even that illusion becomes real. The singularity within waits, silent, the deepest mystery of physics, trapped mid-pulse. Perhaps black holes are not exceptions to time, but records of it. Perhaps they already contain pauses, eternities folded into a point. a horizon without fall, a gravity without pull, a silence that swallows the silence whole. Zoom smaller, down to the quantum scale. Here, time is already strange. Particles exist in superposition, neither here nor there, until observed. Uncertainty rules. If time stops, do quantum fluctuations stop too? Does uncertainty pause? Or does quantum chaos continue even when everything else is still? Imagine a particle suspended mid-tunnel, a photon caught between being a wave and a particle, a quantum bit in a computer frozen mid-state. Some physicists argue time itself may be emergent, a property of quantum entanglement. If that's true, then stopping time may mean unraveling the quantum fabric itself. Would the universe dissolve at its smallest scale, or would it simply hold quiet, waiting to begin again? A particle unmeasured, a wave without crest, a silence where even uncertainty rests. Long before physics, humans dreamed of time stopping. Myths told of gods freezing battlefields mid-swing, tales of enchanted kingdoms asleep for 100 years, stories of eternal recurrence, where moments repeat again and again, as though the world itself had stuttered. Perhaps these stories are echoes of the same idea, that time, fragile as it seems, could falter, that there may be pauses woven into eternity, tiny breaks we never feel. Think of déjà vu, that eerie repetition, a sense that this has happened before. Is it simply memory's error, or is it a ripple, a hiccup, a 1-second pause that left us doubled in experience? The myths may be wrong in detail, but perhaps right in spirit. Time is not as smooth as we believe. It may fracture, it may pause, it may fold, a story half said, a battle half won, a silence that echoes in the mind of everyone. So this is the cosmic pause. The earth stills, the sun halts its fire, the stars stop burning, the galaxies freeze in their drift, black holes wait mid-pole, quantum particles hang unresolved. It is not only the human world that pauses, it is the universe itself. Would the cosmos notice it had missed a beat? Would the universe remember a silence in its own expansion? And yet, when the minute ends, everything resumes. The earth spins, the sun burns, the galaxies dance, the particles jitter. Or would it continue seamlessly, as if nothing had ever happened? Or perhaps it would leave no trace, swallowed by the infinity of time. Perhaps the pause would echo faintly, in déjà vu, in myth, in memory, silence upon silence, stillness upon stillness, the universe itself caught mid-breath, and yet from that breath, life begins again. We've wandered through the frozen minute as a whole. We've seen the silence in light, in sound, in breath, in thought. But imagination is never satisfied with only one answer. We've stretched 1 second into eternity, and we've asked what perception itself would feel like in a world without time. It always wants to ask what else. Could a forest keep swaying while its people stand still? What if time's pause is not even? What if it unfolds differently, depending on where you stand or what you are? What if it holds some, but not others, freezes this, but not that? Could Earth itself freeze, a perfect photograph in the cosmos, while galaxies spin above? Could the frozen minute itself be something stranger still, a doorway, a labyrinth, a loop without end? Could you, and only you, move within the stillness, condemned to be awake in a world that has forgotten motion. So let sets walk through these alternate outcomes. A story half said, a battle half won, a silence that echoes in the mind of everyone. So this is the cosmic pause. The earth stills, the sun halts its fire, the stars stop burning, the galaxies freeze in their drift. Black holes wait mid-pole, quantum particles hang unresolved. It is not only the human world that pauses, it is the universe itself. And yet, when the minute ends, everything resumes. The earth spins, the sun burns, the galaxies dance, the particles jitter. Would the cosmos notice it had missed a beat? Would the universe remember a silence in its own expansion? Or would it continue seamlessly, as if nothing had ever happened? Perhaps the pause would echo faintly, in déjà vu, in myth, in memory. Or perhaps it would leave no trace, swallowed by the infinity of time, stillness upon stillness, silence upon silence. The universe itself caught mid-breath, and yet from that breath, life begins again. We've wandered through the frozen minute as a whole. We've seen the silence in light, in sound, in breath, in thought. We've stretched 1 second into eternity, and we've asked what perception itself would feel like in a world without time. But imagination is never satisfied with only one answer. It always wants to ask what else. What if time's pause is not even? What if it unfolds differently, depending on where you stand or what you are? What if it holds some, but not others? Freezes this, but not that? Could a forest keep swaying while its people stand still? Could Earth itself freeze, a perfect photograph in the cosmos, while galaxies spin above? Could you, and only you, move within the stillness, condemned to be awake in a world that has forgotten motion? Could the frozen minute itself be something stranger still, a doorway, a labyrinth, a loop without end? So let sets walk through these alternate outcomes, not because they are possible, but because they are haunting, because they let us glimpse, in dreamlike fragments, what stillness might mean beyond physics. A minute that fractures into possibilities, a silence that multiplies into echoes, a pause that becomes not one story, but many. Picture this: every human halts, mid-step, mid-breath, mid-word, eyes open but unblinking, muscles tense but unmoving. And yet the world carries on. The wind still blows, rivers still flow, rain falls across frozen crowds, dripping down faces that cannot flinch. Factories continue, machines clank and spin, conveyor belts carry goods into empty air. A robotic arm lifts a car door into place, but no worker's hand is there to finish the weld. Sparks fly from frozen equipment, falling around motionless bodies. Power plants keep humming. Steam builds where no human adjusts the valve. Electricity surges through circuits, lighting offices full of still employees. Screens flicker with images no one sees. Cars roll forward without drivers. A bus coasts down a hill, its passengers locked mid-motion, but gravity still pulls. An airplane guided by autopilot continues its course. In the cabin, every passenger is still, mid-conversation, mid-drink, mid-thought. Animals move freely. Birds wheel through the sky above paralyzed cities. Stray dogs trot through silent streets, weaving between statues of people. In forests, Deer step cautiously around hikers who no longer walk. Whales breach above motionless boats, diving back into seas that churn without pause. Even artificial intelligence continues. Stock trading bots execute transactions, servers calculate, satellites send signals. The digital world hums on while its human masters remain still. The image is eerie, a planet alive with motion, but without its caretakers, a reminder that nature, machines, and systems do not wait for us. They move whether we join them or not. The wind that still sways, the fire that still burns, a world that moves while humanity yearns. Now imagine the most personal possibility. Everyone freezes but you. The world becomes yours alone. At first, wonder. You step into the street, weaving between still cars. Drivers grip their wheels, eyes locked forward, breath unfinished. You knock on their windows, but they never blink. You enter a cafe. Customers hold cups halfway to their lips. Steam rises from mugs, but never swirls. Coins hang mid-drop from a frozen cashier's hand. In libraries, books lie open on desks, words mid-read, fingers point to paragraphs that will never be finished. Pens hover above paper, mid-sentence. At airports, announcements cut off mid-word. Passengers hold passports outstretched. Planes sit on runways, pilots frozen in cockpits. You wander forests where hikers are mid-step, cameras mid-click. You step into stadiums where athletes hang mid-sprint, balls mid-arc in the air. Everywhere you walk through moments denied completion. At first, it is thrilling. You can go anywhere. Step into vaults, museums, palaces, stand before priceless art. Inches away, sit in boardrooms with leaders who will never see you. But then comes the loneliness, the silence, the weight of being the only one awake. You whisper to friends who cannot answer. You place your hand on shoulders that never turn. You look into eyes that never blink. You realize freedom without witness is exile. To be awake in a world that does not move is to be the loneliest traveler imaginable. And when time resumes, will you remember the silence, or will it dissolve, leaving only a shadow in your memory? A city without voices, a forest without song, a world still alive, but you do not belong. But perhaps the pause is not stillness at all. It is transition, a doorway into somewhere else. You step across the threshold of the frozen minute and find yourself in strange landscapes. The hall of mirrors, corridors lined with reflections of yourself at different ages. Some are children, some are elderly, some are versions of you that never were, each frozen in mid-motion, waiting for you to notice. The Garden of Time. Flowers bloom in impossible colors, each one representing a moment of your life. When you touch a petal, you relive the memory, but stretched into eternity. The labyrinth of seconds. Every path leads to another second of the frozen minute, each one reconfigured. Walk left, and you are in your first birthday. Walk right, and you are in a day not yet lived. Here, time is not absent. It is fluid, reshaped, stretched into strange geometries. When the minute ends, the doorway closes. You return to reality, carrying only fragments of memory. Did it happen, or was it dream? A path without map, a garden without end, a silence that folds, then opens again. And finally, the loop, the frozen minute, does not end. It repeats. At first, you think it's déjà vu, the same gestures, the same scenes, but then you realize you are trapped in recurrence. You live the same minute endlessly, and first you test it. You explore different paths each time. You walk through frozen rooms, frozen forests, frozen skies. Each repetition allows you to see details you missed before. But slowly the weight grows. Eternity is not vast, it is circular. You are trapped in a wheel that never ends. What do you do? Do you despair, screaming into silence? Or do you embrace it, building peace in the repetition? This is the question of eternal recurrence. Is eternity prison or sanctuary? A circle without end, a silence that returns, a wheel that spins though nothing burns. So these are the alternate outcomes. Humans frozen while the world continues. Earth frozen while the cosmos moves. You awake while the world dreams. The minute as doorway, the minute as loop. Each one surreal, each one impossible, and yet each one feels like a dream you might have had once, or a myth you might have heard, or a deja vu you cannot explain. Perhaps the frozen minute is not outside us, but within us, in memory, in dream, in imagination. Perhaps we already live these pauses, hidden in the folds of our minds. Tumble one silence imagined, one stillness inside, one moment that lingers. Those seconds divide. The minute has ended. 60 frozen seconds dissolve. The world exhales. The photon arrives at your eye. The droplet falls to the ground. The laugh resumes. The tear slides. The embrace completes. It seems seamless, ordinary, as if nothing has happened. But here lies the question. Was it seamless? Or did the pause leave traces, echoes, shadows? To explore this, let's walk carefully through what happens after time restarts. Let's look at the return of light, of sound, of breath, of motion, and ask what it would mean for memory, for physics, for the human spirit. Because the end of the pause is not an ending at all. It is another beginning, a silence undone, the Chinya stillness released, a world resuming, but never at peace. When time resumes, does it flow gently or violently? Ghouls objects mid-fall. A glass hovering in mid-air shatters instantly. Water splashes, delayed only for a heartbeat. Books tumble from shelves, coins hit the floor. Machines mid-motion, engines roar, gears grind. Factories spark. The power grid jolts back into life. All the energy caught in suspension, released at once. Nature mid-process, a wave crashes with sudden force. A tree bent by wind releases, branches snapping forward. Lightning resumes mid-strike, thunder rolling across the sky. This snapback could be violent, like pressing play on a paused recording at maximum volume. Every process delayed for a minute releases its stored momentum in a sudden burst. Or perhaps it is seamless. Every fall, every splash, every spark continuing as though no pause had ever been. The universe refusing to acknowledge its own absence. Would you notice the difference? Or would it be hidden, subtle, indistinguishable? A coin that falls, a glass that breaks, a silence that vanishes, leaving no trace. What about you? Would you remember the pause? If time truly froze you, awareness and memory halted, then the missing minute would vanish without trace. You would never know it was gone. But suppose awareness persisted, or dreamlike impressions lingered, then you might feel the gap as an ache, a déjà vu, a sense that something happened, though you cannot say what. Think of times in your life when you lost a minute, drifting off, then waking as though time slipped, staring into space, then realizing you don't know how long you've been gone. Perhaps this is the closest we've come to a pause, moments erased from our story. The memory gap raises a chilling question. How often has it already happened? Could pauses slip into our lives without notice, erasing themselves perfectly? A thought unfinished, a dream unclaimed, a minute erased, yet never named. Would physics remember? Then entropy. The universe tends toward disorder. If a minute is lost, entropy itself misses a beat. Does this mean the universe is slightly younger than it should be? Orbits Earth paused in its rotation. Does the sun still calculate our days correctly, or is our calendar off by 60 seconds forever? Mnemonic clocks, the most precise devices, measure time by atomic vibrations. If vibrations halted, would the clock itself resume or wrong? Would humanity's perfect time be permanently scarred? Even if imperceptible to us, perhaps physics itself holds the scar. Somewhere in equations, in energy, in the math of the cosmos, there is a missing number. A fire that burned less fuel. A star that shone less light. A universe off rhythm, though hidden from sight. Now turn to the human world. If time resumes suddenly, industries lurch forward. Hospitals. A scalpel mid-cut finishes in a flash. A heartbeat paused resumes mid-beat. A patient saved or lost. Factories. Machines spin violently. Conveyor belts jerk forward, spilling goods. Sparks leap where welds resume. Airports. Planes resume mid-flight. Passengers blink, unaware of the missing minute. Pilots adjust, never knowing they froze. Roads. Cars roll forward. Drivers blink, not realizing their eyes were still. Collisions narrowly avoided, or caused by the odd restart. In daily life, the coffee pours again. Conversations resume mid-word. Laughter continues as though no pause interrupted. For most, it feels like nothing. But what if a few remember? A child who swears a second lasted forever. An old man who says the world stuttered. Would we believe them? A laugh resumed. A step retaken. A silence forgotten. A memory shaken. Beyond physics and memory, there is spirit. What does it mean, philosophically, that time can stop? Religions have long spoken of eternity, of timelessness, of moments beyond seconds. If a pause happened, would we see it as proof of the divine, a miracle of silence gifted to the world? Or would we fear it, see it as a flaw in creation, a crack in reality, proof that the universe is fragile? Perhaps different cultures would interpret differently. Some would call it a blessing, others a warning, and individuals too. Some would feel awe, some would feel dread, some would dismiss it entirely. The weight of a missing minute might shape stories, myths, beliefs, passed down not as fact, but as legend. A silence divine, a stillness profound, a pause that reshapes the sacred ground. So what happens after the pause? The world resumes, physics restarts, people blink, the minute dissolves. Perhaps nothing is noticed. Perhaps the pause vanishes without mark. Or perhaps faint traces remain in physics, in memory, in myth. A glass that fell strangely, a child who swore time stuttered, a dream you cannot explain. The minute may end, but its questions linger. For even after time flows again, we cannot forget what it would mean if it had not. Stillness undone, silence erased, a universe moving, yet never replaced. The pause ends, but the mystery does not. The pause has ended, the minute dissolved, but the questions remain. For what we've really been circling is not only what happens if time stops, but what time is to begin with. We live in its current every day, but rarely do we touch the water. We speak of losing time, saving time, running out of time, as though it were money, fuel, sand in a glass. Yet in physics, it is woven into the fabric of space itself. In philosophy, it is argued to be either everything or nothing. So let us linger here, after the pause, and reflect, not to solve time, but to see it from different windows, as science describes it, as philosophy questions it, as myth and imagination reshape it, a silence undone, a river unrolled, the mystery retold, but never controlled. The most ancient way to know time is movement. The sun crosses the sky, shadows lengthen and shrink, the moon swells and fades, a child grows taller, a leaf turns from green to brown. Time is the name we give to the difference between before and after. Clocks, whether stone sundials, swinging pendulums, or vibrating atoms, are all surrogates for motion. A pendulum swings, a crystal hums, an electron shifts orbit. These rhythms stand in for the invisible. But imagine if every motion stopped, would time still exist? If a universe contained no change, no difference, no movement, would there still be time waiting silently in the dark? Some argue yes. Time is a container, empty but real. Others argue no. Time is only motion itself. Without motion, no time, no measure, no meaning. And what about us? Your memory is change. Your heartbeat is change. Your very breath is proof of time's passage. Could you exist if nothing shifted? A step without stride, the breath without air, a moment without movement. Is it even there? Another view? Time is not out there. It is in here. Your sense of past and future is built from memory. You string moments together like beads on a thread. Without memory, there is no before, no after, only the present moment repeating endlessly. Consider those who lose memory. For them, time collapses. 10 minutes ago is as inaccessible as 10 years ago. Life becomes a constant present, unanchored. Now think of dreams. In dreams, time is elastic. Minutes feel like hours. Hours dissolve into seconds. Perhaps our waking life is the same, but steadier, stitched together by the brain into something we call continuity. So perhaps time is not something the universe has, but something consciousness makes, a way to arrange experience into order. If that is true, then the frozen minute is less about physics and more about memory. Did you remember it? Did you mark it? If not, did it happen at all? A thread without beads, a story untold, a silence remembered or forgotten when cold. Now the most unsettling thought, maybe time is not real at all. Einstein once wrote that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. To physics, all moments may exist equally. Like pages in a book, you experience them in sequence, but the book is already written. If so, then the pause was not a theft, only a page you lingered on. The rest of the story always existed. This view unsettles because it seems to deny choice. If the future already is, what does it mean to decide? If tomorrow's mistakes already exist, can we avoid them, but others find peace in it? If the whole river exists already, then nothing is truly lost. Every joy, every love, every moment of laughter is permanent, eternal, untouched. An hour that never dies, a page that never fades, a silence eternal where the whole book is laid. For us, time does not tick at the same pace everywhere. An hour in joy runs like a river. An hour in sorrow drags like stone. Childhood summers feel endless. Adulthood years vanish. Physics insists each second is the same, but to the heart, no 2 seconds are equal. So perhaps time is measured not in ticks, but in intensity, in how much life you feel in a moment. This explains why a frozen minute might feel like eternity. Without newness, without motion, the mind stretches the absence into something vast, and why a joyful moment can feel eternal, even when brief. Time, then, is not uniform. It is colored, bent, stretched by emotion. A minute in grief is a century. A minute in love is a breath. Time is not length but depth, not number but heft. Across cultures, myths of time abound. Chronos, the devourer who consumes all things. Kairos, the opportune moment, a doorway that must be seized. The Hindu cycle of kalpas, universes born and destroyed across endless ages. The Norse Ragnarok, an ending that repeats eternally. These stories show us that humans have always felt time as more than measure. We have felt it as fate, as cycle, as hunger, as gift. Maybe the frozen minute belongs here, not as physics, but as myth. A pause is a reminder. Time is not ours. It can be interrupted. It can be stolen. It can bend to forces beyond our comprehension. And myths whisper, maybe that already happens. Maybe moments of deja vu, sudden stillness, strange dreams or glimpses of hidden pauses. A God who halts the wheel. A story told twice. A silence that lingers, though nothing precise. So what is time? Is it motion, memory, illusion, emotion, myth? Perhaps it is all and none. The frozen minute revealed something simple. Time is fragile in meaning, even if strong in measure. It is the canvas of every story, but perhaps not the paint. It is the rhythm of every song, but perhaps not the melody. And perhaps that is the real reflection. Time is not to be solved, but to be felt. You feel it when you breathe. You feel it when you love. You feel it when you dream. A silence undone, a river unrolled, a mystery retold, but never controlled. We've walked through questions, through silences, through pauses. We've seen light frozen in the air, sound trapped in stillness, waves unmoving, faces unfinished. We've stretched seconds into eternities and let them fold back again. Now at the end of our wandering, there is no puzzle left to solve, only a place to rest. Time has resumed, but you don't set need to chase it. The clocks can tick, the world can move. For now, this is your pause, not cosmic, not forced, not stolen, but chosen. Imagine yourself at the window of your own room. The night has settled. The lamps outside are steady. A car passes on the road, but you do not follow it. You watch it fade. taillights red in the distance, and then you turn inward again. Inside, the air is calm. The chair holds your weight. The floor beneath you is solid. You realize you do not need to hold anything. The world is carrying you already. This is where the script becomes less story, more journey, a descent, not into questions, but into quiet. One hush for the body, one hush for the mind, one hush for the heart, until all are aligned. Let the images return, not as riddles, but as scenes you can walk through one last time. The first second of the stop. Do you remember the glass mid-fall, the bird mid-flight, the voice mid-word? You walk into that second again now. Everything is frozen, and you are free to observe. You touch the rim of the glass, and it is hard, like stone. You look into the bird's eyes, and they gleam, mid-flap, mid-life. You hear silence, total and perfect. The unfolding minute. You remember how each 10 seconds felt. First curiosity, then unease, then longing, then strangeness, then release. Revisit each one as if stepping through doorways. The 10 seconds, the world is a painting. Oh, at 20, the tides are sculptures. Oh, at 30, the laughter and sorrow of humanity are locked mid-gesture. Oh, at 40, you wander uneasy through statues of friends and strangers. Oh, at 50, even the self begins to blur. Oh, at 60, everything returns in a rush. The cosmic pause. Recall the sun held mid-flare, galaxies mid-spin, black holes waiting mid-pull. Imagine floating there again, a traveler drifting among frozen constellations. You touch a star, and it feels cold like glass. Perception in the pause. Your senses fading, your memory dissolving, your self flickering. You are reminded of dreams that last an hour in a heartbeat, or seconds that stretch into eternities. The dreamlike outcomes. Humans frozen while animals roamed, Earth still while the cosmos turned. You walking alone in a silent city, touching raindrops that never fall, doorways into labyrinths of time, loops of minutes repeating. The return, the snap back, the seamless resumption, the questions of memory. Was it noticed or forgotten? Did physics scar or did it heal? Reflections, time as motion, time as memory, time as illusion, time as feeling, time as myth, each one true, each one incomplete. You walk through these memories like galleries. In each hall you linger for a while. The images are still here. They do not vanish. They live inside you. And as you walk, you feel the weight of them soften. They no longer demand answers. They simply hum like quiet music in the background. A museum of silence, a gallery of dreams, and you the only visitor, drifting through streams. Now the body slows, the breath deepens, the narration shifts into rhythm as though rocking you gently. Imagine you are lying in a forest clearing. The trees around you are tall, their leaves unmoving. Above, the stars hang frozen, but instead of frightening you, they soothe you. They seem to promise that stillness is not the enemy. Your limbs feel heavy. The ground beneath you holds you without question. You close your eyes. You feel yourself sinking, not down, but inward. You drift through layers. First, the layer of thought, where questions swirl. They scatter like birds, fading into distance. Then the layer of memory, where images of the day linger. They dissolve like ink in water. Then the layer of sensation, where body and world meet. It blurs, softens, fades, each layer deeper than the last, each layer quieter. Your body knows how to do this. It has done it every night since you were born. It knows how to release, how to rest, how to let go. A tide pulling back, a leaf drifting down, the forest path. You walk through silent trees. The branches arch overhead like cathedral beams. A deer stands frozen mid-step. You walk past it, hand brushing its fur. It is soft though still. Fireflies hang suspended in the air, tiny lanterns mid-glow. The path leads you deeper and deeper until the forest itself dissolves into night. Now the imagination opens, not for puzzles but for peace. A hush that is gentle, carrying you now. The city path. You walk a street where every passerby is still. Cars halt mid-turn, trains pause mid-track, conversations cut mid-laughter. You enter a cafe, steam hangs above cups, coins hover mid-air. You touch the counter and it feels warm, as though heat is immune to pause. You sit, and for a moment you are the only heartbeat in the world. The ocean path. You stand at the edge of a sea. Waves are arched but unmoving, a frozen cathedral of water. You step onto the wave's surface. It holds you, like glass. Beneath fish hover mid-swim, tails still, eyes bright. You walk across the water until the horizon itself bends into stars. The sky path. You rise into the night. Stars hang frozen, galaxies unmoving. You float among them. A comet's tail is mid-arc, beautiful and silent. You reach for it and it crumbles into dust that glows around you, wrapping you like a blanket. A path without end, a road without need. Each path is not outward, but inward. Each one leads to stillness. Each one returns you gently to yourself. Now at last, you release, a silence that carries you where you must be. The questions fade, the images dissolve, the voice becomes softer, slower, trailing. You are no longer asked to imagine. You are no longer asked to wonder. You are only asked to rest. But the sentences trail off into hush. Let the words wash over you without following. Let the story slip into silence. What remains is your heartbeat. What remains is your breath. What remains is the gentle pull of sleep. The frozen minute was never out there. It was always in here, inside you. And now it becomes what it was always meant to be. Your body knows how to do this. It has done it every night since you were born. It knows how to release, how to rest, how to let go. A tide pulling back, a leaf drifting down, a hush that is gentle, carrying you now. Now the imagination opens, not for puzzles but for peace. The forest path. You walk through silent trees. The branches arch overhead like cathedral beams. A deer stands frozen mid-step. You walk past it, hand brushing its fur. It is soft though still. Fireflies hang suspended in the air, tiny lanterns mid-glow. The path leads you deeper and deeper until the forest itself dissolves into night. The ocean path. You stand at the edge of a sea. Waves are arched but unmoving, a frozen cathedral of water. You step onto the wave's surface. It holds you, like glass. Beneath fish hover mid-swim, tails still, eyes bright. You walk across the water until the horizon itself bends into stars. The city path. You walk a street where every passerby is still. Cars halt mid-turn, trains pause mid-track, conversations cut mid-laughter. You enter a cafe, Steam hangs above cups, coins hover midair. You touch the counter and it feels warm, as though heat is immune to pause. You sit, and for a moment you are the only heartbeat in the world. The sky path. You rise into the night. Stars hang frozen, galaxies unmoving. You float among them. A comet's tail is mid-arc, beautiful and silent. You reach for it and it crumbles into dust that glows around you, wrapping you like a blanket. Each path is not outward, but inward. Each one leads to stillness. Each one returns you gently to yourself. A path without end, a road without need, a silence that carries you where you must be. Now at last, you release. The questions fade. The images dissolve. The voice becomes softer, slower, trailing. You are no longer asked to imagine. You are no longer asked to wonder. You are only asked to rest. Let the words wash over you without following. Let the sentences trail off into hush. Let the story slip into silence. What remains is your breath. What remains is your heartbeat. What remains is the gentle pull of sleep. The frozen minute was never out there. It was always in here, inside you. And now it becomes what it was always meant to be, not a question, but a lullaby. Stillness upon stillness, silence upon silence, sleep within sleep. Good night.